All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is October 27th. Happy Friday to everyone out there. We got a decent-sized NBA slate to jump into in today's video. Like we always do when I go through each and every game, I'm going to give you my lean or leans on the games. But as always, my final play is what I'm actually rolling with myself. So if you do want to ride with me, or if you want to be a guppy and fade me, those plays will be in the pinned comment. I always update that before the games kick off there. In terms of last night, we go 1-1, not going to kill us, not going to be anything we write home about there. Joel Embiid over 4.5 assists. That cashes there, ends with 6 assists. The Bucks -6. At so many times during that game, even towards the end of the game with 2 minutes left, it looked like this was going to hit, but nonetheless it does not come through there. They end up winning by 1 point. It was really 4, but the Sixers hit like a last minute bank heave of a 3 to make it a 1-point game. But nonetheless, guys, still a good read. Just the Sixers made it close at the end of the game, but 1-1 is not going to kill us. But what we do love to see is the ride of the day, pumping some crowd noise. Loso coming in with Anthony Davis over 0.5 threes. Anthony Davis goes 1 of 2 from deep there. We had him in a couple of our TikTok player prop plays and whatnot too. So Anthony Davis definitely cashing for us. If you're not following us on TikTok, at EvPicks 3.0, picks with a Z at the end, go check it out. But yeah, shout out to Loso here. Anthony Davis over 0.5 threes. If you guys do want a chance to be the ride of the day and get a shout out in the next video, all you got to use is hashtag ride of the day. Give me an absolute banger of a play. I'm jumping on board with one person's pick in the comments and giving you guys a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Now, speaking of the next videos, we'll probably have some makeshift setup. We'll still get the videos out, but we are going to be away from home for the weekend. Yes, I was just on vacation, and now we're going away for the weekend again, staying local, but just not home. So FYI, the next few videos are going to look a little bit different. Maybe just tomorrow's videos. We should be back fairly early on Sunday, but nonetheless, guys, let's go ahead and jump into today's games. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. First game up, we got the Charlotte Hornets taking on the Detroit Pistons here. Hornets getting the win night number 1 against Atlanta. They win 116-110. Detroit, like I told you guys, kept it close against Miami. They were 9-point dogs. I think they closed at +9.5, right? And they only lose by 103-102. Right now, Charlotte's sitting at 4-point favorites. The total sitting at 225. My first lean in this one is going to be the under. I've seen 226 on FanDuel, -110, so I like the under 226.5. We saw Charlotte actually look pretty decent offensively, but Detroit's defense didn't look all that bad. I know that sounds crazy saying, but I think this game is a little bit slower paced than the Hawks game that Charlotte played, and we already saw Detroit play in a slower paced game. So I like the under 226.5 right there. I don't mind it at 225.5 either. And then in terms of a spread pick, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm a psycho as we sound the psycho alert alarm, but I think I liked what I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I think I liked what I saw out of Detroit in night 1. I'm gonna lean Detroit here plus the points on the road. Do I have the balls to make that a final play? Probably not, because it's night number 2 in the NBA. Like, I don't think I'm gonna start betting Detroit right away, right? But nonetheless, like, I was not turned off by how they looked in night number 1. Now, I think they match up really well against that Miami team. I said it, they were bigger than them. Today, similar thing, like Mark Williams being the center for Charlotte, Detroit having Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart as their 4 and 5. Like, I think that Detroit could have, if they get big numbers, now 4 isn't a big number, but if they get these big numbers during the year and they match up against smaller teams, I do think that they may have some opportunity. I say may because we don't want to counter eggs before they hatch. Like, the NBA season's just getting going. Detroit could stink like always at the drop of a hat, right? But nonetheless, guys, give me Detroit plus the points as well as the under. Let's move on to the next game. All right, Memphis taking on the Nuggets here. Memphis at home. Obviously, still no Ja Morant, no Brandon Clark. In terms of injuries for the Nuggets, nothing really to note here. Memphis didn't look terrible in their opener. They're playing against the Pelicans. They do lose by, what was it, 6 or 7 points, but I don't think that I hated what I saw there. Denver obviously looked pretty damn good, and Denver sitting at only 4.5 point favorites. I think you got to lean towards them, right? Like until further notice. I even said that I leaned towards the Lakers in night one just because I thought 5.5, 6 points was a lot. Denver proved me wrong there. Now, we didn't make that a final play because Denver's Denver, and they looked like a cohesive unit, sort of, not necessarily right from the rip, but I thought it would take a little bit more time for them to kind of slow roll into being that powerhouse again. Didn't really seem like, and I don't see Memphis getting in the way in terms of matchups here too. You have Marcus Smart, but then after, and covering Jamal Murray, but then after that, like, I don't think Tillman, causes problems for Jokic. I know Jaren Jackson's probably going to get a share of those covers, but at that point, if Jaren Jackson's down there, they're going to be able to stretch the floor here with Pope, Porter, and Gordon, and just create some space there too. So I think the starting lineup really matches up fairly well against Memphis. Even though I do think Memphis is a good and going to be a good defensive team, the way that Denver plays as team basketball, like when you only have, I guess you could say a couple, and I'm not giving some of these Memphis guys credit, but when you have a couple stud defenders on your team, a team offense can really pick and choose, their spots there, and you just can't cover all 5 guys at once like that. So I'll take the Nuggets here minus the 4.5 points. Total sitting at 225.5. I don't really have a strong lean on this one, to be completely honest. Night number 1 for Memphis was 111 to 104. Denver's was 119 to 107. We hit the under in that game. I guess I lean towards the under, but I don't think that becomes a final play. I'm not married to it. Cleveland taking on OKC. Cleveland getting the win 114 to 113 in their opener. OKC blowing out Chicago. That game was close for a decent amount of the game, and then literally got to the point where OKC could sit their guys. They win 124 to 104. Cleveland still dealing with some injuries here. Ricky Rubio not in. Jared Allen out. Darius Garland is questionable. OKC, no major injuries to note for them here. I'll be honest, I had trouble kind of finding the edge from a spread perspective in this game. I did manage to kind of find an alternate line that I don't mind, plus 2.5 for OKC on DK on DraftKings for plus 100 odds. But my main lean in this game is going to be the over here, 226.5. I think both these teams can score, and even though we only saw Cleveland score 114, that still definitely makes up half of what we're looking at here, right? And OKC, we saw them score 124. Now, I think without Allen, Cleveland loses a little bit of their defensive edge. We've even seen Donovan Mitchell recently kind of look like, when he was in Utah, he was a really good scorer, starting to become a superstar, but he's also a very good defender, right? I think he's an offensive player now, like with a defensive sort of, he's a good defender, right? But not necessarily like the thing that he's going to focus on. So not to take anything away from him, but I don't think that this is a defensive-minded Cleveland team as much as it was last year or when Allen's in the lineup. And then OKC, though I really like that team, I think you look at them from 1 to 5, like that's a team that's going to run. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's obviously going to want to push the pace, put up points. I like the over 226 in this spot. All right, guys, before we continue on with the slate, I do want to talk to you about OddsJam. If you haven't checked out OddsJam yet, it is a tool, actually the multiple tools on their site that help people like you and me beat the sportsbooks. If you use the link in the pinned comment, you get 7 days free, right? But the second part of the deal is if you sign up for a subscription and use code GUYBOSTON, GUYBOSTON, spelling bee champ, you get 25% off your first month. If we jump into OddsJam here, you can see how cool it is. Right now, I'm on the Plus EV tool, pretty much identifying the best value in the market. For example, Aaron Gordon, under 2.5 player assists for plus 136 over on FanDuel. You could see on other sports books what this is priced at, and it's average plus 105, minus 105 on MGM, minus 101 on Caesars here, plus 110 DK, Flith minus 105, a really cool tool. So there's a ton of value, not saying it's an automatic hit, right? But a ton of value on that plus 136 over on FanDuel. I tell you guys all the time, if you're gonna buy a car, right? Why would you buy a car for 20 grand if you could take 2 steps down the street to another dealership and buy it for 10 grand, half off, right? Get the best best prices on your books. OddsJam is something that definitely helps that out. They also have an arbitrage betting screen, which is absolutely absurd. If you're not arbitrage betting, then you are missing out on guaranteed profit. Now, yes, it's minimal profit, but it's scalable here. For example, on FanDuel, Jaren Jackson Jr. over 7.5 rebounds, -111, right? On Barstool, under 7.5 rebounds for +115. You can come in here, and if you see, you know, let's see on FanDuel, say you put in $100 on FanDuel, you could put on the over, right? You could put 88.41 on DraftKings, or excuse me, on Barstool on the under, and you're guaranteed a profit of $1.68 by doing that, taking both sides of the bet. Either one hits, you end up winning that. Now, obviously, like I said, it's small profit, it's scalable, but it is guaranteed profit. People are like, what, $100 to win only 168? Yes, but it's a guaranteed win. You know what I mean? Like, if you had a tree that gave you $1.68 every single day, you'd go to that tree every day, even though it's only $2, right? And then the last thing I love about them, not the last thing, but the last thing we'll talk about here is the optimizer. Guys, if you're on PrizePicks, if you're on Underdog, Parlay Play, any of these up here, this is a must-have tool. You can compare sportsbook lines to the PrizePicks lines, and they give you a % chance to hit based on their algorithm. Really, really cool tool. I know we talked about OddsJam for a lot, but that's how much they have to offer, guys, and I only showed you a blip on the radar of what they have to offer. Go check it out for free for 7 days, guys. Let's go ahead and get back to the slate here, but I do highly encourage you guys to check out OddsJam. I'm using that tool every single day. All right, Atlanta taking on the Knicks. This one, both teams are going to want to come out firing, right? Like, both teams lost, not to say disappointingly, but you got to be disappointed night number one. Atlanta definitely a letdown spot losing to Charlotte. New York made that game close, got the lead towards the end, and the Celtics still come through with the victory, right? As a Celtics fan, love to see that. But both these teams must have a little bit of a fire under their ass, but I think New York is just that much better. In terms of how they've matched up head-to-head, New York and Atlanta, they've definitely had their sort of fair share of, I guess you could say, rivalry, bouncing back and forth between who wins, who loses, blah, blah, blah. But I like the way that New York played down the stretch against the Celtics, and the Hawks didn't really put that together night number one, so maybe they need a couple more games to kind of figure out, I guess, because they do have a decent starting lineup. Young, Murray, Hunter, Bay, Capella, like, that's a good team. I don't know if it has the same sort of jiviness right now as Brunson, Grimes, Barrett, Randall, and Robinson. You know, both teams have pretty much a similar starting lineup by the end of last year, right? But I like the Knicks in this spot, and I like that the Knicks turned Isaiah Hartenstein too. Like, he gave him some good minutes as well. So if Capella gets Robinson in trouble or not working out, like, as weird as it sounds, like, that's a decent piece off the bench. I can't believe I'm saying that, but give me the Knicks here. Plus the 2 points. I wish they were at home because this is a good spot for the Hawks to also bounce back. So if you're on the Hawks, I don't want to talk you off it, but I personally like the Knicks tonight. Total sitting at 230.5. Again, I do think that this is a sort of let's go, let's fire it up type of spot for both teams. That being said, 230.5 is just a little bit too high for my liking here. So I'm going to lean towards the under, but I don't know if I pull the trigger on it just solely because I could see these teams trying to score at will, because both offenses definitely to start the game kind of looked clunky in night number one for both teams. All right, Celtics -7.5 at home taking on Miami. It's the home opener. Celtics look good. Porzingis look good. Drew Holiday looked good defensively. I still think he has some more untapped offense there. Jason Tatum obviously looked good. But 7.5 points is a lot to roll with here, ain't it? Like, I don't know how confident I am in that. I do think this could be a slow-paced game, so I don't mind the under 217.5, but I don't think you're going to catch me laying the 7.5 points as the Celtics. So I guess I lean towards the Heat. But if you guys don't know, I'm transparent with you guys. I'm a massive Celtics fan, bigger Celtics fan than I am sports better, I guess. So I'm not going to bet against the Celtics. So you won't see it in the final plays. I get shit for that every single year, but you know what? It is what it is at this point. But yeah, I don't mind the under here, 217.5. I've seen it at 216.5 on some sports books for decent value too as an alternate line. I think BetMGM had it at plus 100, plus 105. So don't hate that either. Again, I think it's just a defensive game. I think the Celtics team is very good defensively, and we know Miami's identity is going to be that defensive sort of, trying to get the defensive edge, rough ball, right? So I'll take the under in this one as my main lean, and then I don't hate Miami getting the points after barely beating Detroit in night number one. Chicago at home taking on Toronto right now. Chicago's sitting at 2-point favorites, total 218 as of right now. I don't think either one of these teams are going to score tons of points throughout at least the start of the season here. So even though 218 is fairly low, I'm gonna lean towards the under. You guys see me leaning towards plenty of unders as of right now because, excuse me, because it is the beginning of the NBA season, and just unders seem like they are somewhat of the trend right now as teams kind of figure it out and miss shots and start games super slow. If you guys have been watching NBA basketball, like these games, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are starting super slow, which if you start slow, it's hard to come back and get to that high number. Now, some of these games, like I said, the Celtics one, this one we're talking about now, 218 is definitely something that you can kind of make up for, but some of these games like that Atlanta New York one, if they start slow, a 230.5 total, that's tough to make up. But nonetheless, guys, in this game, I do think that you have two teams that maybe underrated defensively, which I didn't think that I was going to be saying, overall about the Bulls. I know the Raptors do have some good defenders there, but I like the under in this spot, 218. And then in terms of a spread pick, I think I like the Bulls. Maybe it's a little crazy because, again, they look good for like half the game. Maybe they kept it close or had the lead against OKC, and then OKC was like get off and then blew them out, which I still want to I want OKC to prove themselves to us, even though we cashed them so much last year, right? The Rumble and Cover and Thunder, we called them. But in this spot, I think the Raptors, had a good win against the Timberwolves, but I'll take Chicago at home in this spot. I think that they match up fairly well, and if it's a low-scoring game, I think Chicago ekes it out at home. So you can tell by my voice, it's not the most confident game or spot for me, but give me the under as well as Chicago laying the points. All right, San Antonio hosting Houston here. Obviously, kind of a letdown to see Victor Wembanyama out there in night number one. Didn't look as good as I guess you could say people thought. He didn't have a bad night, so don't go barking up that tree. But just didn't have the prolific night, I guess you could say, right? And they lose 126 to 119. But I told you guys, everyone's gonna think the Spurs are gonna win. That line's gonna be interesting. Dallas was the play. I wish I made that a final play. Houston gets creamed by Orlando in night number one, 116 to 86. I don't mind either side here. I'll be completely honest. I think there's value in looking at Houston on the money line at plus 116. Do I make that a final play myself? We'll see. It's not a definite no, right? But I don't really love this spot here. But yeah, San Antonio, if you're on them, I don't mind it. I'll be completely honest. I do think that Wemby's going to have a better game than he did, which he had a fine game, right? I think everyone's just expectations were up here. So when he got to here, it was kind of like, oh, what the hell? He had a fine game. But I do think that, this is probably a better matchup, a better spot for him. So consider his player props if they've dropped it all or anything like that too. But again, he's so hyped that it's going to be tough to get good lines or good value with anything with him. Even with the Spurs this year, he may be so hyped that he's truly impacting that spread, right? But give me Houston on the money line simply for the value, not a confident play, more or less an ROI play for plus 116 over on FanDuel. Total sitting at 227.5. I don't mind the over here. We saw Dallas score 126. Now, they obviously have some more offensive weapon or proven offensive weapons than Houston. But you give me Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, those guys can put up scoring in bunches. I don't see the San Antonio team being the biggest of defenders. Again, Wemby, yes, you're like, oh, well, they could he could block shots. It's like, let's see the Spurs play some serious defense before we start considering Wemby, a defensive player, I guess you could say. So give me the over in this one again. This is a spot in which I don't think much defense is going to be played. San Antonio, Houston's not going to play that much defense, but San Antonio, I don't think is going to hold this one down. All right, Dallas taking on Brooklyn here. We just talked about Dallas getting that win against the Spurs in night number one. Now, this is interesting to me because do I think Dallas wins this game? Most likely, but I think 6 points is a little too much to be giving Brooklyn. They hung in there with Cleveland. I would argue that Cleveland could beat this Dallas team. Now, a healthy Dallas team can be pretty good. Luka and Kyrie, if Kyrie keeps his mouth shut and I want to say just shuts up and dribble, but we can't say that. But if he just doesn't get involved in all the extracurriculars, I do think that this is a pretty good team on paper, especially that backcourt, right? Grant Williams, I don't know if he's going to do what he did in night number one. But what I'll say is, kind of an underrated Nets team here. You know, the combo of, I would say, Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, even Cam Johnson, Thomas off the bench, and then you throw in the fact that you still have Ben Simmons, who I'm not going to start saying Ben Simmons is great or anything like that, but you know, he is a guy that is going to contribute in more ways than one. 10 rebounds, 9 assists night number one. Yes, I think he only attempted like 5 shots. He had 4 points, so like you're not going to get that much offensive from him, but Dinwiddie and Ben Simmons and Mikal Bridges, like if they click on any night, like that's a 3 player, I don't want to say a big 3, but a 3-player combo that like can compete with many teams. And 6 points here is a little bit too much. Now this will be an indicator, because I could be a crazy person for backing the Mavs, or backing the Nets here against the Mavs, right? So we'll see, but I don't mind Brooklyn plus the 6 points. If you can get them in some sort of a teaser too, you know, at like plus 12, like you know, maybe a 5-point teaser plus 11, like there's value there, because I think this is going to be a Brooklyn team that may not seem like all that successful, but can cover these mid to large spreads. So let's see if I'm talking out my ass here, because you know, it's all hypotheticals to start the year. We have 1 game of sample size to go off of here, but give me the Nets here plus the points. In terms of the total, 228, I don't have 228 and a half. I don't have much that I like here whatsoever. It's a little bit too high. If this is 224 and a half, so 4 points, I'd love the over, but I kind of see it landing in that range, so I'm going to stick away from the total. All right, guys, real quick, before we get to the last few games here, I want to talk to you about my store, the Fade Me store. If you have not picked up any merch yet and you watch every single day, I think it's time you do so. We'll go over to the shop all here and just browse around. We got tons of cool things. I'm rocking the Guppy cross-out sweatshirt here today. The Fade Me Athletics collection here, that's been one of the top sellers since we launched it. Love the backboard tee. We also have plenty of this stuff in hoodies as well. If you do want to support what we're doing here and get some great merch at a great price at the same time, go ahead and check out Fade Me. I'll put a link in the pinned comment, but it's fademe.store, FADEME.STORE. Another spelling bee champ. Like, I'm acing these today, huh? Let's go. But go ahead, check out Fade Me, guys. It's a great way to support it. I get so damn excited every time I see an order come through. My phone makes a cash register sound too, so it's like, let's go. It's a cool thing. Go check it out, guys. If not, just to browse around, fademe.store. I'll put a link in the pinned comment, but it's a great way to support what we're doing here, help us make bigger and better and more frequent content. Let's go ahead and get back to the last few games. All right, we have Utah taking on the Clippers here. Utah, I don't know what to necessarily make of that team and watching them in night number 1 either. I'm not sold on anything, but I do think the Kings were so much better than them that we might not have gotten a great look at Utah. And the Clippers look very good, but they played Portland. So you have 2 teams here that, if I'm being completely honest, I don't necessarily know exactly who and what they are right now. So I'm going to lean towards the home team here, getting the plus 3.5. I think it's a decent amount of points here. But again, this is based on not as much you know, data or even eye test sort of testing that I'd like to have here. I just do think that, you know, this is a Clippers team that I think may be overhyped because they're healthy, but you know, if you're on the Clippers, I wouldn't let what I'm saying talk you off. In fact, I'm not even bringing up any good points, right? I'm gonna take Utah because they're home. What I do like is going to be that under 230.5 in this spot here. I like the under for the Clippers game. That was a final play in night number 1. That did not come through. It didn't look like Utah could play a lick of defense. I'm hoping things kind of click a little bit better for them in night number 2. But Taylor Horton-Tucker, Clarkson, Markin, and John Collins, that's a pretty good 1 through 4. Now, it's not Westbrook, George, and Leonard. I get that. But I think Utah can keep this game close. And if they do, I think, you know, this game starts to slow down a little bit. So I'll take the under. That's probably my main lean in this spot. But I don't mind Utah getting the points at home either. All right, Portland taking on Orlando. I don't want to be swayed by what I saw in night number 1, but Orlando obviously looked like a better team than Portland did when Orlando went out there and absolutely crushed. But I will say this Portland team has some young guys. DeAndre Ayton, I think, is going to be better than he was in night number 1. But I'm going to lean towards Orlando here. Portland, I would put in a similar boat, I guess, as Houston. And Orlando, again, crushed Houston. And I just think Orlando has, like, when healthy, they do have like a weird amount of young talent. And it's interesting that, you know, they're inevitably going to have some injuries that they have to, they suffer and have to go through and whatnot. But Fultz, Suggs, Wagner, Banchero, Carter, like, those are all guys that if you know, you flash forward 5-6 years, like one of those guys could be a stud, right? Like they have these potential guys, and it's just a better lineup, I think, than what Portland has to offer, and they're a little bit deeper as well. So give me Dallas. I hate that they're on the road here and that they looked really good in night one, but it was their competition. So keep that in mind, guys. Like I'm trying not to get swayed by night one, but all of a sudden I'm sitting here being like, oh, well, Orlando crushed Houston. They're obviously going to crush Portland, right? Portland, they do have young guys too. They do have veterans. Like they could go out there and be like, yeah, we are better than Orlando, right? But I just don't see it here. I like Orlando. I like them coming off of a win too. Hopefully these guys are flying high. Total sitting at 223.5 as of right now. An over. I like this over. I don't think that there's going to be much defense here, even though we do have, you know, decent defenders on both sides, you could say, right? Tybal and Grant, and then you have just the length of Orlando can play good defense. I think we're seeing, you know, Portland, obviously the Clippers. I'm not saying Orlando's the Clippers, but the Clippers put up a bunch of points. And Orlando played Houston. Like, I don't think that they were clicking yet. So I do think this could be an up-tempo game and a lot of points scored. So I'll take it over 223.5. All right, Sacramento hosting Golden State in this one. Now, no Draymond Green for Golden State, and that's a huge part of why I'm leaning towards Sacramento. Yes, they looked phenomenal in night number one, but like I said, I don't necessarily know what the Jazz are yet as a team, so I don't want to put too much stock into Sacramento, but this is a really good team. We saw them make that push last year. We saw them be a very good team last year, right? So I'll take them in the spot at home, minus the 2.5 points. The fact that they're favorites kind of, you know, ekes me a little bit, but it might tell me that Vegas might know something, like why aren't they underdogs? I think that, you know, everyone and their grandmother's gonna think, oh, the Warriors a better team. Like this Sacramento team is pretty damn legit here. Last season, when we look at it here, they either kept games close or won games against Golden State as well. So that's worth noting. That's good to see as well. Obviously, they played in the playoffs too, and, you know, decent series, right? So I will go ahead and take Sacramento here, minus the 2.5 points. Total sitting at 239. This is where you get me. I'm like, it just seems so high. It seems so high. There's an available play for minus 150. It is juiced, but it's under 243 over on FanDuel. I don't think that's a bad move. You're getting, you know, nearly 4 points there of value, but I'll take the under in this game. But we saw Sacramento put up 130. We know the Warriors can put up a bunch of points. They only scored 104 in night number one, but you know, if anyone gets absolutely hot, whether it's Steph or Klay Thompson, like we could be looking at a lot of points. So I don't think that I have the balls to pull the trigger on the under, but I do think that, you know, that would be the side that we roll with if we were to be forced to play something in this game. But nonetheless, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you did like it, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. If you are watching right now, I want you to comment the team you think is going to win the NBA Finals, and who a dark horse team is as well. So give me a finals winner and then sort of like an underdog team that people aren't necessarily thinking of, because I know a lot of those finals teams are going to be the Bucks, the Celtics, like the easy ones, right? But I want to know who's kind of like a dark horse team for you guys. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Again, tomorrow's videos may look a little bit different, but nonetheless, still pumping out the content, whether we're home, whether we're away, whether we're on vacation, whether we're in a bunker in the middle of nowhere. We'll try and get the videos out, but we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.